Senator Kaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to begin by associating myself with comments of my colleagues earlier in the hearing. First, Senator Wicker, I appreciate you having a moment of silence in honor of those who lost lives or family on 9/11. The attack occurred in Virginia and other locations, and also for your moment of silence to think about political violence. I did not know Mr. Kirk, but I think many of my Senate colleagues did, and some considered him an acquaintance and some considered him a friend. And so I offered prayers for his family and the university community yesterday, but as I'm sitting here looking at colleagues who may have known him, I know how devastating it was to our colleagues, Senator Klobuchar and Senator Smith, when their friends were killed a couple months back. And so I feel for my colleagues, anybody in this body who knew or friends with, acquaintance with Mr. Kirk. It's just so sad. There's been 300 instances of political violence in this country since January 6th. We have a colleague, Senator Kelly, whose life was dramatically changed. We have a colleague, Congressman Scalise, whose life was dramatically changed by political violence. And those of us on this committee who travel around the world and interact with leaders, they kind of look at us as like, this is who you are. We don't really think it's who we are, but it's becoming so common. And we have to figure out a way out of it. I don't have any answers, but I'm very troubled this morning in the aftermath of it. I want to thank Senator Reid for raising the questions that you raised about the Venezuela strike. The idea of the framers that we should not be engaged in military action without Congress, they came up with that idea when George Washington was the president. They had a president they revered who was a great military leader, and yet they didn't think the decision about use of military force in hostilities should be dependent upon one person. And we have yet to get answers about some critical aspects of the attack. And the decision to interdict versus attack is a really important one, because interdiction often gets you evidence that you can then use to prosecute or go after the higher-ups or the kingpins. And so we still don't have an understanding of why there was an attack rather than an interdiction. Many of my colleagues have joined me in a letter seeking answers to those questions, and I hope we'll get them. And finally, I want to associate myself with Senator Blumenthal and the sanctions bill that's currently on the table before us that has overwhelming bipartisan support. I can understand a desire to pause action on that while we would seek some resolution with Russia and Ukraine. But during the pause, what we've seen is Russian aggression grow in Ukraine, against EU offices in Ukraine, and now against Poland. And I agree with you, General Mahoney, whether it was intentional, which I think it likely was, or unintentional, which would raise a whole set of other troubling questions. I do believe there needs to be a response from the administration and from this body. Let me ask you this, General Mahoney. You're very well qualified for the position. I support your nomination. I appreciated our visit. The press is reporting that the DOD is going to send its reconciliation spending plan to Congress sometime in September. Do you have any information here today about the status of that plan and when we will likely see it?
I don't have any specific information on that, Senator. I know as the Uber budget guy in the Marine Corps, we have put our spend plan together and submitted it. I do not know when it will be delivered.
Okay. The reconciliation bill called for it by August 22. I'm not completely surprised that it was not to us by then, because this is a big amount of money and we want to make sure we spend it the right way. But I do hope we get it soon, so that in response to Senator Wicker's questions, I know you'll make sure we execute on the plan, but we're very interested in that plan here. I want to ask you, General Mahoney, you've often been before our readiness subcommittee in earlier iterations. I want to ask you some readiness questions. How will you think about assessing readiness across the joint force, especially when it comes to preparedness for executing O-plans?
And I think we might have discussed this in readiness. There is the man, train, and equip aspect of it that the services own. And then there is the exercises versus O-plan that are primarily owned by the COCOMs. I think the chairman, as the integrator, also has an exercise flow where he brings all those things together to work out the entire joint force end to end, whether it's versus a specific O-plan or scenario, or whether it's through derived scenarios as well. So it looks like a pyramid from the services going up to the chairman as the global integrator.
I'll just say, as I hand back, readiness of joint enablers like strategic lift, contested logistics, communications networks, very important, especially in Indo-PACOM. I know you're aware of that. The fact that you've done so much work in the Indo-PACOM already, I think, is going to stand you in a good place.
As a follow, I believe that's why the chairman's role as the global integrator is so important, because of those enablers that may not exist on a magenta line that defines a COCOM.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator.